Hi guys, thanks so much for tuning into this video. I am Jay Theo, and today we're going to be discussing the lack of representation when it comes to Black and POC voices in today's media. That's TV, film, all the above. Just the lack of representation we continuously see for Black and POC queer people. The reason I really wanted to make this video is because I feel like over the last 5 to 10 years, we've been seeing so much newness in queer media and queer TV shows, queer movies, just the representation. But it still is just a very big lack of diversity when it comes to Black and brown folk, Asian folk, Middle Eastern folk, indigenous folk. And also there's a lack of real showcase of real true diversity within relationships, within friend groups, within our community, what that really looks like for us. So before I get to that, I do want to say once again, thank you to all my subscribers. As I promised, I'm going to continue to be consistent, so shout out to all of y'all. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and let's dive right on into this video and let's discuss the lack of representation when it comes to Black and brown voices in the media. So y'all, what really brought on this video was that new Netflix special that came out over the holidays. It was like a white guy and a Black guy falling in love over the holidays. I watched the trailer, didn't watch the movie. No shade to interracial love. I think everybody should be able to love who they love. But what really bothered me about it was just yet another story about love involving a Black person or a person of color that involved a white person when it comes to being queer. And I'm so sick of this narrative that, oh, us queer people of color need a white savior or a white man or a white lesbian to come save us from whatever. It's always this like typical, it's like always this showcase that, you know, for us to be gay, for us to be out, for us to feel love, it has to be with a white person. And I'm just getting really sick of it. And it's like no shade to interracial love, like I said, but there's so many other types of love. Also, one thing I'm getting sick of, I tried watching the newest season of Love, Simon, and I could just not get over how his love interest was white and then Simon's white. So it's like savior complex in both sides. His love interest is white, wants him to come out and be out, and then you have the Simon guy giving him tips on how to be gay. It's just like, why do white gay people, are they have the only tools and tricks of being gay or being queer? Like it just grinds my gears. And every time I see a new Hulu show, Netflix show, Amazon Prime show, if there is a queer person of color, their mate and their partner 9 times out of 10 is gonna be white. Their friend 9 times out of 10 is gonna be white. Like there's never a true folk showcase of how our relationships really are in the POC world when it comes to being queer. And I just want to get to a place where we get more true representation, because when we can see ourselves love each other, when we can see ourselves Black people loving Black people, Latinx loving Latinx people, Asian people loving Asian people, and queer, when we can see more representation of that, then we will become less stigmatized and there will be less homophobic in our own communities. I feel like the media also portrays that to be gay is to be white. So I feel like that's also why a lot of our communities don't think that it's okay that we as queer people are queer, because we are not white. And I know this may sound like a reach, but I don't think this is a reach. This is the reality. We do not see enough media that represents monoracial relationships in queer spaces that are not white. And even just interracial relationships that do not involve a white person. I'm just so over everything being centered around whiteness all the time. And Hollywood's new way of being diverse is always just like throw a white person in there, throw a mixed person in there. It's never just letting things be monoracial or letting Latinx, Black, Asian, indigenous, and letting us have communities and letting us have a voice without white people. So that's kind of where this video came from, just to kind of give you my thoughts. Sorry, I kind of ran a little long there, but that's my thoughts on why I'm so bothered by the lack of representation. So there's so many reasons why I think representation is so important. And to kind of break this down, I'm gonna use Noah's Ark, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It came out in the early 2000s. It was about a group of 4 friends, Black and Latinx, that lived in Los Angeles that were gay, and them navigating sex, work, HIV, marriage, all the above, as Black and Latinx queer people. And it was just an amazing show. I learned a lot from it. So I'm gonna use kind of my thoughts on Noah's Ark. If you haven't seen it, go watch Noah's Ark. But I'm gonna use my thoughts about Noah's Ark to kind of speak to why I think it's so important that we have representation. So first of all, I just think there's power in representation. When you can see yourself, you can love yourself. When you can see yourself loving people that look like you love yourself. When our community sees more of us out there being represented, it's gonna create less stigma for us as queer people within our communities. It's gonna create less homophobia, less transphobia in our communities. Even when it comes to trans women, the only showcase you see get lots and lots of love besides Pose, which did have diverse people. Other than that show, every other showcase of trans women is white. Is white. And I just feel like there's such a different experience for a trans person when they are of color. So, sorry, kind of just digress a little bit, but I just think there's so much power in representation when you can see yourself, we can believe, if we see that monoracial love, we see ourselves loving on each other, then we can feel like we can love each other. If we see ourselves being represented, we see ourselves being doctors, being lawyers, being professors, like on Noah's Ark, we see ourselves being screenwriters, we see ourselves running businesses. We feel like we can run a business. We feel like we can go to college. We feel like we can be these people. So I just think there's power in representation, it helps in stigma, it helps in negativities in our community, and it helps just showcase that being queer is something other than white. Being queer, everybody is queer. And we just need to have way more showcases where queerness is not just white and not just one shade, one color, one viewpoint. Also, one great thing about Noah's Ark that I feel like more shows can do if we got more representation, we can really use it to teach. Like, shows are very pivotal in teaching and showcasing things. And one great thing about Noah's Ark is it showcased a lot about HIV, it showcased a lot about hookup culture, it showcased a lot about just sexual health in general, it showcased a lot about being married and being queer, and just in the dynamics of being married, being a queer person, managing work in the corporate world, being queer, all those kind of things. And I think that's just so pivotal. And I think that stuff like that's just an easier way of teaching and showcasing than giving somebody a book or giving somebody an article to read. When they can watch and be entertained in a funny, humorous way and learn about HIV, learn about sexual health, learn about the dynamics of marriage, learn about the dynamics of being queer in corporate and workspaces, I just think that's really cool, and it's a big miss right now with all the media that we have. And like I said earlier, the media rarely ever shows monoracial love, period. It rarely shows monoracial love even for straight people if they're not white. But even more rare is monoracial showcase of love when people are queer. So I think there's just so much value in seeing people of color seeing themselves date each other, date monoracially, and to see queer people of color also just date within people of color. Not always needing some white savior or some white person to come showcase the gayness or to prove the gayness or to bring them into the gay world. We don't need that. It's such a different world living as a gay person of color and a gay black person and a gay Native American indigenous person than it is being gay and white. Point blank, period. Because there's no privilege in this. We are stripped even more, we lose even more privilege when we put the gay label on it. We lose even more privilege when we put the trans label on it. We lose even more privilege when we put the lesbian label on it. You know, so I just think there's just a lot of value in us seeing more monoracial relationships, even just friend relationships that are more monoracial, or just more focused on the POC community and not always so focused on bringing in a white voice and a white representation. And lastly, I just think Noah's Ark was really cool at that time. It was in the early 2000s, so it was just cool watching that show because you got to relate in real time, like what it was like living in the 2000s as a queer black person. So I just think, or Latinx person. So I just think it would be really cool to have that dynamic now, like a coming of age story about black queer, minority queer, POC queer individuals navigating down low culture, navigating sexual health, navigating HIV and the newness of HIV, the fact that people can be undetectable, the fact that it's not a death sentence anymore, should be showcased. Also, dating apps. We know dating apps are annoying. That would be so funny to see the dynamic of dating apps for queer people of color, queer people in general, but for queer people of color, how that's manifested with DL culture, with discrete culture, all the dynamics we have to deal with being POC and queer. That would be really cool to just see how that manifests. And also just seeing more representation of trans people that are not white and non-binary people that are not white. And just being able to see that representation, being able to see how they navigate their parents, how they navigate their families, how they navigate hormones and And if they do want to do any type of surgery, just navigating that, I think that would be so insightful for people who want to be trans, for people who want to make the transition, for people who are seeking to come out and be trans. Like, I think that would just be so pivotal to be able to see other people and other races represented in stories and dynamics like that. And it doesn't always have to be a scripted show. I think even if there was reality shows that included more so queer people of color and not always the typical straight one note dynamic, I think that could be really, really interesting and really, really cool. And there's just so much opportunity. At the end of the day, also, queer people are entertaining. Queer people are funny. Queer people are sexy. Queer people are fun. Queer people are just so entertaining and exciting. So why not have more representation of all shades, of all colors, of all sizes? Even something like, speaking of sizes, talking about body shaming, being able to showcase the issues of body shaming in the culture, in the gay culture, with being thin and not being too fat and all those things. I think it'd just be such a great opportunity for Hollywood that they're not capitalizing on. All in all, I just think there's so much opportunity for us to have a way more representation of Black and POC voices when it comes to media, TV, film, all of the above. I think there's just so much opportunity out there. I think it would be so entertaining, and I think it would be so informative and a way to spread knowledge to all of these Black, brown, POC individuals that are viewing all this media, especially now with all the access to media that we have. I will say, I know there's a lot of creators out there online, on TikTok, on YouTube, that make content that hires queer people, that includes queer people of color. So shout out to all of y'all. I will do my best to continue to support all the queer voices out there already making content that are including people of color, that are showing our stories, showing our dynamics. Because I know I would love to see the dynamics of queer Asian people and how they deal with their families, how they deal with that dynamic of coming out. I would love to see Middle Eastern people, how they deal with coming out, how they deal with finding love, how they deal with their religion. I would love to see that. I would love to see all different races, Latinx, how they deal with coming out, how they deal with their love stories, I would love to see all of that. I would eat it up. I would pay all my money for that. I would spend all my money on this type of content, on this type of media. And I know you would too. I know there's so many people out there that agree with me that would love this type of media. So with all that being said, y'all, I'll probably talk this to death, but as you can see, I'm very passionate about this. I really want there to be more content to show true representation. And there's been studies, I read an article a couple weeks ago about how representation really does help in stigmas. It helps in, it just helps in a lot of things in society when we have way more representation, and it makes people feel heard, it makes people feel included. And at the end of the day, I feel like inclusion is the biggest piece of diversity. And you can have all the diversity, you can throw in a white person, you can throw in a Black person, you can make things interracial, all you want. But if you're not making people feel included, and if you're not telling the right stories and the true stories, that's an issue. And that's my biggest issue with all these Netflix shows, these movies that showcase us and don't really show true stories. Like the days of Moonlight, the days of Noah's Ark, I feel like those days are gone. And it's like, why are they gone? I feel like we were peaking in showcasing more representation of queer voices in the media, and then now we're back to square one. And if it doesn't include a white person, it ain't right. With all that being said, guys, do your best to stay safe, stay positive. Try to, if you guys know of any content out there that is queer voices of color, please send my way, comment, let me know. I would love to hear about all the great queer voices of color that is making content, that are making films, that are making books, that are making TV shows, that are making whatever. I would love to see it. So please comment, let me know. I would love to support. I would love to support. So guys, I have ranted long enough. If you are liking this content, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video.